how do you help Stuart find what's the problem he wants to solve? Mark?
It's lots of question asking. I mean, it's just questions. We've got to boil down what the question is, and sometimes the question being asked, there's multiple layers that sit underneath that, and it's that inquiry piece that we have to go through, and what is it that you're trying to achieve, and we can get to the root cause of that. Then it's about looking into the information that you have available and what we're able to answer, because it's not always the same. The questions that you ask them, what we're able to answer isn't always the same. So what can we do with what we've got? And talking to your point earlier, sometimes you can only move forward with what you've got, so you get as close as you can go. But it's to me, it's questions.
I find this as well, just as a slightly different. Often I'll talk about what's your hypotheses. Yeah. So we start with your assumptions, your hypotheses, and then we kind of work back from proving or disproving that. That's sometimes the ways that we kind of uncover the answers.
And I think also, for example, recently, if I'm given a very broad problem statement, just build a customer segmentation that works. And
it works.
Yeah, and I guess baby steps. First, do we have the basic common understanding of, let's say, customer segment that we have at the moment? And then after phase one, move on from, okay, now that we all in the room, we all have that baseline of understanding what's interesting from those, and then we just build from there. Because there are some issues, problems that you don't even know what we're trying to achieve. You just feel like, I'm blind at the moment, I need something. So you would do a quick analysis, just light touch, and then build from there, from the conversation.
I think too, you need to define what the problem is, and often there's like multitude of problems, and it's about kind of drilling down to what actually is the problem or the challenge, or what is an area of the business or a question that I have that I actually don't have an answer to. And how would I find that out? And it's interesting, in retail there are a lot of problems and there's a lot of challenges coming through, but it's trying to work out what is the one problem that if you solve it, it's going to spin the wheel in the right direction and really shift the direction of the business. So it's kind of like collating all of those kind of questions that a business has, and then going, if I don't have an answer to it, then where do I need to go, to find those answers? So yeah, it's a mixture of, I think, what everyone said, but it's just really defining what is our problem, and often that is I don't have any visibility of, and that has come up a lot in a whole lot of different businesses, that I have been involved in, is this lack of visibility, or pulling all of those queries in under one defining question. So.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we're seeing is, I think Peter Drucker said, you measure what matters. And for most businesses, if you look at the exec level, at a board level, at your, any publicly trading businesses, you have to share so much more in terms of, what is your growth, what is your trend, how are all these things, how's the business performing, and how do you make investments or decisions based on that information. And so I do think we've got kind of a growing requirement to say, well, actually, how many customers do we have? How many are we losing? Where are we growing and why? And so those questions very much drive the strategy top down, and often the queries bottom up to say, okay, well, at a business level, what are we trying to do? And so quite often we start with, where do you want to be in 3 years' time? And then how do we work back and put in the foundations? And as I say, some of them are not really sometimes exciting, going, well, actually, if you haven't got single customer, you're never going to get to the next best relevant conversation. So we have to work backwards to that. And at the same time, you've got all this risk in your business of data flowing and, without having GDPR and all the right governance steps in place. So it's also looking backwards to say, where do you want to be in 3 years' time, and what do you want to have, and how do we put those foundations in? So it's very much top down. We're seeing more and more as well as a trend.